So in this last part, part 3 of 6.2, we're going to do some prep for 7, and we're just going to fix that little issue I talked about with the button still showing up. But what this is really leading us into is the idea of when you're programming in JavaScript, you're writing the code and the logic and rendering and doing all the things, handling the storage, handling the form, but you're also handling the UI state, meaning the user interaction, the state of that interaction, right? And we really saw this here when we clicked, changed some content, waited a little bit with our asynchronous, and if we didn't confirm, it would go back. But in this case, this opens up the discussion of how do we make sure of our UI state so that when a user does something, we handle it in the best way. Because as you think about yourself as a user, and whenever you've done something on a web page where it's like, that does not make sense, either you've done something outside of the bounds of what the coder, the developer accounted for, right? And because users are so quick or late to respond to something, you have to have that built into your code. So in our next in 7, we're going to start coding up these two buttons that we have rendered into our table. But coding it up really brings up this concept that we've already been introduced to, which is manage our state. So for today, we're going to add some things into our app.js that kind of sets everything back based on any time a function updates the UI. Okay, so the user interface, the page itself, we're going to handle that there. So let's actually get started first by doing here, right? Clicking here. Once we do, it's like, why are you still here? You should not be here. Okay, so how do we do this? We go over to table render. So in table render, we're going to need access, because doesn't it make sense to do it in table render? It's like, we're rendering this table. This is where our code is, and this is where you start thinking about and understanding the modular nature of what we've done. Like, what makes sense to handle that particular function. And I'm previewing that because you'll definitely see that when we start preparing, and definitely when we do 7. Which is, we'll first do the delete and then we'll do the edit. So what do we need access to? Right? Well, we need access to this button. Well, have we already got one? Yeah, we actually already have one right here. So in this case, let's just copy this reference to the clear all data. Let's go over to our table renderer JS, and let's add that first. Okay, so now to think about what we need to do now that we've added them, it's actually not too bad at all, because if we come down into here, come down into the main function that handles this, right? We're already doing some of this, right? Where if there's no entries, right, then we set the table to display none, and we set the no entries to display block. So why wouldn't we just do it here now that we have that? Okay, so we could say clear button dot style dot display. In this case, there's no entries, right? So we would make this none. Okay, and then we could either duplicate it or copy it, because now we're going to say if there are entries, right, then we want to display block. Okay, so that, let's just make sure of that. Let's make actually sure. It's actually here, we're rendering here. So if we submit, good, we get the current entry, we get the entry itself. Let's just do another one so we have 2. Okay, so now we have 2. So if we clear and we confirm to clear, then it goes away. Perfect. Okay, so that was pretty easy to handle, but it does introduce the concept of where do you handle updating the UI, in this case the state of the style. But we know that because we're waiting, or we have a UI state that's going to be changing, we need to be able to handle that. And in our app.js, we wrote code last time that reset, right, that button. But now we're actually going to say anytime, and this is the functions we're about to write, okay? Are actually a function that we're about to write. And let's just go ahead and let's see. I think I have some content for this, right? We did this. Yeah, we did this. Okay. Uh-oh. That's all right. So we're going to write a new function called reset all UI states. Okay, so I'm going to put it, actually I think I'm going to put it after this. Okay. Oh, how about I write the actual function, const, okay, equal to function. Okay. Now, when we're doing this, we have to think about what are we doing? Well, we're actually already doing the reset, one of the resets here. We're going to end up having others later, okay? But for now, right, this will reset any UI related confirmation state across the app, because this pattern that we've seen here, we're going to use in the edit and delete, okay? Actually, let's put it above it. It makes more sense to put it above it in this case. Okay, so this resets all the AI related confirmation states. Okay, so like I said, we have one already, but we are going to add others. But anytime the UI updates, okay, we're going to call this, because yes, we have one specifically for that, but we will have others. So we're just setting ourselves up to say, hey, we know there's others coming, but for now, if I just call inside of this function, okay, so now I will have, and this is what I want you to put here, right? Okay, so in here, right? Ooh, I keep forgetting my copy it. Okay, so this function is called whenever major actions like form submit, clear, and delete occur, ensuring a clean UI state. Right now, we're only calling one here, but part of this, right, and actually this is the second part of that first one, like UI state for, and just more clear, adding to any functionality that updates the DOM. So now we're going to add it to anything that updates the DOM itself, okay? And I think I have this on the last one, right? This will be expanded, and this is good to understand. This, oh, I didn't put, that's why they're not coming through. I didn't put the forward slashes on it. No wonder. I'll fix that before you see it. Okay, this will be expanded into later weeks, okay, as we get more to do, as we get more things that are updating the DOM, because our app, now we're working, now that we have our modules in place, we're functionally doing a lot of things. We're getting ready to do more UI, user interface things, and to do that, we need a way to manage it. So again, we're going to add some more here. And you might wonder, well, you already have it here, so why not change all the places? And actually, there's only one where you call this. And that's because in this case, it is doing a specific thing in a specific part of our code. And we want to be able to call this at the end of any function that updates the DOM. So let's actually go through and look at this. Okay, so I'm going to copy this function right here. Okay. Just copy the name so I don't have to rewrite it every time. And I'm going to think about what things update the DOM. Well, we know handle form submission definitely does. So at the end of here, we could just say, hey, last thing you do before you exit, reset all UI states. Okay. And then handle clear form down here. For sure, this one does as well. Actually, I should have copied that one. It would have been a little easier. Okay. And then actually this one, the one I passed over, because this one also, so let me just grab, I think we only have one more place. Okay. So then what we say is anytime a function, and in this case, right, inside the app.js, but later, if we needed it, we could call it from other places. But in this case, because remember, your app.js is organizing all the things that's happening. It's your main orchestrator for your app. Okay? So perform, clear, and handle, I believe, are all the places you need that. Okay. So now that we have that in place, right, so we can do that setting ourselves up for future, but also now to prep. This also is prep for week 7.1, our assignment 7.1. But there's something else we need to do. And just because there's going to be a bit of code that we're going to write for 7.1 to handle that, first we'll handle the delete like I said before. So we're actually going to do a new function here called handle, okay, delete entry, okay, equal function. Now in this case, part of the reason we set up that unique ID is a way to uniquely grab the unique value and the unique row. But in this case, we'll be passing this to this function, okay? So for right now, we're just going to put, console.log, okay, delete button clicked. Ooh, how about I spell delete right? Delete button clicked for ID, okay, and we'll just use, now that we're using template strings here, we'll just say the ID itself, and then we'll just add this by saying functionality added in week 7.1 or week 7, okay. Now because we know this delete is going to be part of our any update to our DOM, right? So we can just go ahead and say, okay, in addition to whatever else we're going to end up doing in here, right, we ultimately will want to do that as well, okay? So that's just, we're just setting up the function. Now we could go ahead and call it from here because it doesn't have an event listener, and when we implement the event listener for this and for the edit, you're going to see a new pattern to where we start writing functions that can be reused by several different things as a way to, again, be more efficient with our functions, because we want them to, when possible, be written so that they can be reused. But because we know we're also going to need the companion edit, I'm just going to do that nice trick where I duplicate this. I'm going to say edit entry, okay, and then I'll just change this to edit. Again, actually I think I have some content here, right? This handles the delete, and then we'll say this handles the edit function for a specific value. Okay. Okay, good. So there's one more thing we want to do before we finish this up, and we're going to write an event listener for the entire doc. Okay, so anytime a user does a click, because, and this could very well happen, like, you have some entries, the user clicks but then clicks away somewhere else, and you want to be able to handle that situation, okay, because it again is a way that you're just making sure your UI state is in a good clean state and ready to go. And in this case, it does actually allow us to see some code we actually haven't really talked about, and it's the AND as well. So in this case, we're going to go down, we'll go down into our init, okay? So down in here, so we have an event listener for right below our clear all data, and we're going to say, in this case, document. So when we do document event listener, that means add event listener for anywhere. So if somebody, and I'm actually going to show you this because it's actually really kind of cool to see. And we're going to say it's going to be a function, and because it is listening for a click, it's going to pass us an event, okay? And then we'll do our here. Now we're going to write some code in here, but for now I just want you to do console log event. And now I want you to do target. So what was the target of the event? Now that event, we've looked at that before and it's got a lot of data on it. But in this case, I want you to specifically see the target of the event that we're going to, that is, and how it is triggered, because it's on the click. It says anywhere on the document. So let's actually go here. Let's reload. So if I click anywhere, if I click anywhere I click, okay, that event listeners is sitting there waiting. And it'll tell me, oh, your target in this case, okay, the target is where you clicked. So if I click here, it tells me, oh yeah, clear the button, did all that, but then it tells me, hey, this is where you clicked. So what can I do in that case with this event listener based on the idea of managing my state? Well, I can say if is confirming clear all and. So in JavaScript, the operator and, okay, two ampersands, it represents and operator. So we've seen the or operator a little bit. It says one or the other. But now we're going to say both of these have to be true in order for what is about to be in here to be run. So we're going to say if that is true, okay, and we know we're setting that value up in this event listener, right? Because we're setting it true. Once the use the first click, we set it as true. So once the user clicks, if for some reason they click anywhere else, then this code is going to handle that. And we're going to say if that's true and event.target is not strictly equal to clear button data. In other words, they click somewhere else on there. In that case, we're going to call reset the button, okay? Now again, you might kind of wonder, Rio, you've set up this function. I said it earlier, but it's worth repeating. You've set up this, right, inside of anything that handles a DOM. But in this case, we're capturing for a specific condition related to this confirming clear all. So why not just call it directly, right? So let's actually see this in action. Okay, so we have it here. And if I click and then I click somewhere else, right? So what it did is it reset it. So even before the timeout happened, when I clicked and I clicked anywhere else, it stopped, right? That event timeout didn't get to fire. This event, set timeout did not get to fire, right? And you can see that because you don't have the clear that came out of that. And remember, these are the IDs that we set up last time. So let's just add some content here to understand, right? So this is a global click event listener that is in our init, okay, to reset the clear all data button state. If the user clicks anywhere else on the page while it's waiting, because users will do that, okay, and only reset, okay, yeah, here we go, only reset if the confirming state, oh, actually I put it on the wrong one, didn't I? Oh, that's the wrong one, should have been up here, okay. There we go. So only reset if the confirming state and the click was outside of the button itself. Okay, so it was not equal. Okay, so in other words, if the user clicked anywhere else, go ahead and reset that. We are going to assume, because as a UI person, user interface, now this is not a UI class, this is a programming class. But often when working in UI, you're dealing with programmers, or if you're a programmer, you're dealing with the UI folks, because there's a whole profession just for user interface, because you can imagine how important that job is based on how much interaction our web pages do. Okay, so what we've done in this particular assignment is in this last section, is we fixed something. We added some new functions to set us up for next week, our handle and edit. We don't have them called anywhere yet. We could manually call them from here, right? We are going to now in week 7 start coding. Matter of fact, I think we'll see how far we get through this. We'll start with the delete, right? Because the buttons are only here, they don't function. But think about what they're doing in our CRUD application: create, right, read, update, and delete. So in a sense, by doing the clear all saved data, we've already implemented the concept of a delete, but we're just doing everything. But now we want to be more precise and say, hey, I only want to delete that entry, okay? And that's where that unique ID, if I was to just drop down in here, right? That unique ID, that's when we were writing these, that's what we were passing, was that ID, so that we can handle, in this case, first the delete, and then we'll handle the edit afterwards. So doing a little setup, also adding some more things to, handle our reset of our UI state. That's what we did here. We added this, and really, again, we only added, so inside of here, we will add more later as we add more things in here that could update, that will change your UI state. And UI state in this case means user clicks something, you are going to do something, or you're waiting, right? And in this case, if they wait long enough, it goes back. But what happens if they click off? Then it goes back as well. Hope that summarize helps you give an idea. Time to move on to week 7. Let's see. I think I do have one thing I wanted you to check out here. Is what is UI state management? What is it? And it should say, why is it important? What is UI state management, and why is it important to handle in JavaScript? Okay, so doing some research, and I'll fix that by the time you see it, is important. And here is your last commit, and then you'll submit that, and then we'll move on to your checkpoint. All right, talk to you later.